Donald Trump wants his puppet to be the next governor of New Jersey, but Mikie Sherrill is fighting back. A former Navy helicopter pilot, a prosecutor, and member of Congress, she's now running to be the governor to protect democracy in her state. But before we get into my interview, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay informed on how you can defend democracy. Mikie Sherrill, welcome to Defending Democracy.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So you have been one of the bright spots and rising stars among Democrats in the House. And now you are running for governor of New Jersey. So tell me about that decision, why you decided to run for governor and what you hope to get done.
Sure. I think in these times where we are seeing power in the Democratic Party and just power to really expand our support for people and focusing an agenda on driving down cost and pushing back against all of the economic harm being done by the Trump administration is really in these governors' offices. And so running for governor, as I looked at it, was the best way that I could support the people of New Jersey. I have 4 kids. I want to create opportunity for them going forward. I want to make sure they have the same opportunity that I had, but also the same protection for their rights and freedoms. And I want to create that for every kid in New Jersey.
So it used to be not that long ago that the New Jersey and gubernatorial elections were like the bellwether elections, right? These were always in the off year after a presidential election, and everybody would be like, "Let's see what's happening in New Jersey. Let's see what's happening in Virginia, because that'll tell us a lot about the national mood." And I still think that's true, although I think that there is so much else going on in politics that people are paying attention to. Maybe there's a little bit less national attention. So for people who have not been focused on the state of the race, you're running against a complete lunatic. Those are my words, not yours. But we have to take every lunatic seriously in this day and age. So tell us just a little bit of the lay of the land of the race right now as it stands, and kind of how you see it playing out. Obviously, you think you're going to win, but like, how do you see the political landscape right now?
Yeah, so I would just start by saying I think New Jersey is the most critical election in the nation going on right now. And I say that because we've had
I will
uh,
not tell Congresswoman Spanberger that you said that.
oh, you can tell her. She argues this point with me all the time. She happens to disagree. So, as you might expect. But I'd say because this has been a really intense election from last November when I entered into it. We had 6 people in the Democratic primary,
Wow.
representing almost every part of our Democratic Party. And so, everyone came to weigh in on the path forward here. We had record setting turnout. 840,000 Democrats showed up, just to give you a sense of scale here in New Jersey. Last year, presidential primary, which is generally a larger turnout, was 550,000. And now we are in this competitive general election with my opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, who came within 3 points of our incumbent governor in the last race. This is the third time he's running for governor. And we also slid 10 points to the right in the 2024 presidential cycle. So I think this is a real test of where not only New Jersey is, but where this country is going and how people feel about the leadership of Donald Trump. And I think we're going to see these results really making an impact on either the wind in our sails in the Democratic Party for 2026, or, man, a huge blow to the agenda going forward if we don't have a great race here. And I think we can. I also will tell you that this to me is an opportunity. There is a lot of, I think, frustration about where Democrats are and what they are doing going forward. We have seen here in New Jersey, as you heard from, kind of the turnout in the primary, Democrats here in New Jersey are feeling very engaged. I don't get questions, where's Democratic leadership? Everyone in New Jersey knows what's going on here, who's at the table, who's fighting hard, and they're ready to join the fight. So we are seeing the idea of attacking the economic harm that's being done in Washington from Donald Trump, the $5 billion hit to our budget, the tariffs, which are putting small businesses out of business and raising costs on everybody, the one big beautiful bill attacking Medicaid and education funding, for example, among many, many other things, and focusing on how Trenton itself can run better and how we can drive down cost here. And that's really compelling to everyone. So I think this is what we can build. I'll just end by saying the thing that to me is so troubling is to see that every time we see this mounting Democratic excitement and engagement, we're able to build that here in New Jersey. I see thousands of people. We have 564 municipalities. I mean, we have more municipalities than California. So we are everywhere seeing everybody. Every time that excitement builds in New Jersey, that there is a wet blanket that continues to get thrown on this on social media, online, in some of the cable news programs about Democrats. And I think we're building something really important here. And it's interesting that there are a lot of people at work to try to stop that in its tracks.
Yeah, it's interesting. You touch on something that I wanted to get to before we talk about the general election, which is your primary. I think that one of the most undercovered political stories of the year was your success in that primary. And I'm not looking to criticize anyone else or be uh, uh, get into a whole debate about across the river what in the New York City primary. But the fact is, you won a very, very, as you point out, competitive primary that was really ideologically diverse. And people who don't know New Jersey don't know it's one of the hardest states to campaign in generally, but in particular a primary, because you have a New York City media market and you have a Philadelphia media market. So it's not like there is a natural home for to get known statewide in New Jersey. You really have to compete with a lot of news from other places, and you put together a really extraordinary coalition that spanned from sort of center left to left. And I don't think that's gotten enough notice. And so, talk a little bit about that primary election and why that is, in fact, as you point out, and these are my words, not yours, an example of how Democrats nationally can sort of conceive of how you put together a winning coalition.
Well, I think my frustration has often been that the path to Democratic success is not that difficult to discern. I'd say we've seen it as far back as 2018 when I first ran. And what you heard people at that time running on, that people who were successful at building broad coalitions, flipping Trump districts and holding those districts and connecting to people across their state, were kitchen table issues. And so when you see who's continued to develop these broad coalitions and have greater success in the Democratic Party, you see people like Alyssa Slotkin, you see people like Abigail Spanberger now running in Virginia, who have run really focused on how in elected office they can make families' lives better. That's what it comes down to. I mean, there's a lot of people that can do a lot of things in the world, but there's only one person that can be governor of New Jersey. And that person has to make sure that you can afford your electric bill, right? I mean, among many other things, but at the end of the day, brass tacks, the person you elect should make your life better, your opportunity stronger, your kids' future brighter. And I think when Democrats get away from that, and there's a lot of talk about, oh, we talk about niche issues, we do this. No, we can protect rights and freedoms everywhere. I've served in the military. I've taken oaths to the Constitution. There's no vulnerable community that I'm going to back away from and say, oh, you're unpopular, so I'm not going to talk about you. That is not the problem. The problem is when you're not leading with a strong and aggressive message on creating opportunity and driving down cost at a time when we see a president who is using every lever to pad the bank accounts of anybody with the last name Trump. You need to focus on working people. You need to make sure that you are delivering a government that is going to deliver on opportunity. And if you're not doing that and focused relentlessly on that, then you're really missing the boat. And I think we've seen that over time. But again and again and again, it comes down to kitchen table issues. And yes, I care deeply about so many issues that are going on at the federal level right now. I care deeply about things that I've served all over the world. I know what U.S. programs can and have done for growing democracy and opportunity and economic stability across the world. I know what they do here at home and how they deliver success here at home in economic opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think as Democrats, we need to start our focus with working people. And if we're not doing that, we're not gonna succeed.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you've done, which you didn't mention, but I'll add to this, is that I think voters want someone who they feel is like fighting for them. And part of that is the issue set that you talk about, like they have to be issues about it, but they also want someone who's going to stand up for them and fight hard. And I think that we sometimes in politics there is a confusion between ideology and fighting. And you can be a moderate who fights, you can be a liberal who fights, you can be a progressive who fights, and likewise you can be all those things and not. And I think that a lot of your successes that I think talking to people I know in New Jersey, I grew up just on the other side of the border in Rockland County, New York, just across the border from Mawa. In fact, all my youth was spent basically in Bergen County, New Jersey. And talking to people I know, like there's just a sense that like you are taking the fight for them and for New Jersey, both in Congress but also in your as a candidate.
I think that's so important right now because I think people are very skeptical of, um, elected officials. I think I say this is the least partisan race I've run because people are just exhausted by both parties. And so in the Navy, we always say you need to find a way or make one.
Mm.
There's not a lot of, oh, well, I'm going to try to do this or I'm going to promise you the world and not deliver it. You either find a way to move forward. And if that way is not obvious, then you create that pathway. And that's what a good public servant does for people is finding pathways, even if they're not there. And if we have learned anything in these past several years, it's that you have to move aggressively and quickly, or you are going to get rolled. And I think the people of New Jersey want to see a leader who is not going to make some vague promises of, opportunity and affordability without brass tacks. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I don't care who stands in the way. So to have my opponent suggest that he's going to do whatever Trump says, and he said he can't think of any way he disagrees with him, or to say that he is going to, it's his job to support the president, excuse my French, bullshit, right? Like,
Yeah.
it is the job of the governor of New Jersey to support the people of New Jersey. And I have taken on everyone, including really powerful members of the Democratic Party, when it comes to serving the people of New Jersey. That's what families deserve. That's what they need. And I think that's what is going to be on the ballot this November.
Yeah, so let's talk about your opponent because I think I introduced him as right wing lunatic, which I think he is. But you're right. He also came closer to beating Phil Murphy in the last gubernatorial election than, frankly, I think people predicted. So, we have to take you have to take your opponents seriously. That they are. You run, good candidates like you. You run the race aggressively, and you don't assume that the other candidate won't have a message that he will try to run on. Um, but I have to say, like he would be an unusual fit for New Jersey, given that New Jersey is, a blue state. It has its areas, but it is a state that believes in progress. It believes in science. It is a pro-choice state. It is a state that is part of the economic engine of the country, and it's also a state that Donald Trump has targeted for punishment, which, by the way, is in and of itself a whole other conversation we can have. I mean, the way in which the pettiness with which he has treated the citizens of New Jersey make it a weird thing for your opponent to run a campaign as essentially the proxy for Donald Trump. So, tell me why. Uh, tell me why we should be more worried than maybe we are, and also, how you take on a candidate that is so far outside the mainstream of New Jersey Republicans, who in the past have succeeded by being, frankly, very moderate, and this guy's not.
Right. So the person who is the moderate in the race has yet to endorse him, and I don't think will endorse him because he is really too far to the right for New Jersey. But I guess the threat here is that here in New Jersey, when we see what goes on in some of the Republican rallies and stuff, I think there's a vision of people who follow Donald Trump and are too far to the right. There's a certain vision of how they might look, like a January 6th protester or something. And so we often have people in New Jersey who are following 100% of what the president does, vote 100% in line with him, say things like, I can't think of anything I disagree with the president on, are willing to have an abortion ban like Jack Ciattarelli, or to raise taxes every time he's in elected office like Jack Ciattarelli. Again and again, supporting, he said, people are going to have to experience pain to support Trump's tariffs. Now, why would the people in New Jersey support Trump's tariffs on coffee beans from Brazil? Nobody in America grows coffee beans. There's no reason to support Trump's tariffs on coffee beans from Brazil. And there's no reason that the people of New Jersey should feel pain because he's doing that, right? And so again and again and again, he's had these extreme positions where he's advocated for the president, not the people. And yet, because of this vision of what maybe a Trump supporter looks like, if you wear a collared shirt and you kind of smile as you're going around diners, there has been this sort of wolf in sheep's clothing thing that goes on here, where people come off as a nice next door neighbor guy while they're supporting all these really bad positions that harm the people here. And I think that's, what we're facing, and that's why I'm running so hard. If I have heard once, I've heard 100 times in this race, run like you're 10 points behind. And I think that's really good advice, because it's up to me to make sure people realize how he is actually voted when he's in office and what he himself has said about what he would do as governor. Because I think if people hear that, they realize how out of step and out of touch he is with people in New Jersey.
Yeah, and look, I mean, everyone in New Jersey needs to recognize Donald Trump raised your taxes. Like Donald Trump, and so when you have a guy running for governor supporting Donald Trump, like he raised your taxes. He is targeting the industries that drive the economic engine of New Jersey, both the large businesses like the pharmaceutical industry and others, but also the small businesses. The small businesses that make New Jersey really such a dynamic economy. And Donald Trump is doing all of those things. And this Republican, rather than saying, I'm running as, someone who is a different kind of Republican, I don't agree with everything. Look, I don't think much of Kelly Ayotte or Sununu in New Hampshire, or even Phil Scott in Vermont, but they at least try to say, like, they're not, they're Republicans, but a different kind of Republican.
They at least try to
This guy
pretend they're
is
reasonable. This
right,
guy,
but
yeah.
this
In many
guy is
cases,
like, no, no,
has
no,
been
I'm
really,
Trump.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's visited him every time he comes here. He gets his little butt to Bedminster as quickly as possible. Even took a helicopter from Atlantic City, paid, I think, quite a bit of money to just go kiss Trump's ring. So every opportunity, he has tied himself closely to Donald Trump, and at every opportunity, has really failed to ever stand up for the people of New Jersey. So you're exactly right. It's really problematic. And I'll tell you, when we see what Trump has done here, it's it's striking. I mean, speaking of coffee beans, I was speaking to this guy Chuck, who owns a brewery, a coffee roaster and coffee shop, and he was saying that a big burlap sack of coffee beans used to cost him $2.50. And then, as he put it, when Trump got in some political fight with the guy in Brazil, now that bag is $7. And he said, I just had to tell my customers.
Yeah.
I held off. I held off. I was hoping that, the tariff would go right. He goes, I have to raise costs. So we're seeing costs going up everywhere, which stands in such sharp contrast to the promises that were made about lowering cost. And to see then someone running for governor who's just going to go right along with that. I mean, I have to tell you at every level, you're exactly right. Trump attacks New Jersey. In fact, the thing that, I was once called the tunnel obsessed congresswoman because we were trying, it took years to get the Gateway Tunnel project getting its fair federal share. And under the Trump administration, he would have infrastructure week every week and yet failed on every level to do anything about that Hudson River tunnel. And it blew my mind. I'm like, this is such a huge economic benefit for the whole Northeast Rail Corridor, for businesses, for families getting around, for commuters in my district. And again, he just, refused to do something like that. And I think you see that in this administration, the attacks on New Jersey, the $5 billion hit just to our state budget, the fact that we sent $70 billion more to the federal government
Right.
than we get returned. And now they're not even going to run the Medicaid programs or the education programs that they're on the hook for. The fact that he's attacking power and generation here in the Northeast. So we know those costs, which have already gone up steeply, are going to go up by hundreds of dollars. So again and again and again, you see these attacks. And that's why I'm running as a governor who is going to take on that administration for the people of New Jersey.
All right. Let me ask you about some specific issues wearing both your current hat and your future hat. So, we are all waiting to see what happens on September 30th, which is when the federal government budget runs out. And there is a lot of talk that there may be a shutdown. Um, it seems to me, but I am not an expert in policy outside of voting in elections. It seems to me that Donald Trump keeps shutting down the parts of the government he wants to shut down. So tell people, like, what is the fight? What is happening on September 30th, which you'll still be a member of Congress for, and kind of what the stakes are for New Jersey, but actually even more broadly than that. I'll be right back with more of my conversation with Mikie Sherrill in a moment. But in 2020, I started Democracy Docket to help cover voting rights, free and fair elections, and everything involving democracy. Now that the Department of Justice has been turned into Donald Trump's political weapon, the Democracy Docket team is growing to meet this moment. So please support their work by becoming a premium member now at the link above or in the description below. And please also make sure to like and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to make sure you get notified whenever we post a new video.
So we are facing a government shutdown on September 30th if we either don't pass the budget or if we don't have what's called a continuing resolution, meaning we'll just continue this budget that we're on. Now, continuing resolutions are a really poor way to run a government. So I come out of the House Armed Services Committee, and we have to cancel all kinds of programs and lose millions and millions of dollars if the new budget doesn't come online to kind of pay for the updates to the programs. So we pass the programs. If we don't pay for the updates, then we lose all this funding. When you have to restart, it costs millions more than it should. So it's
So
really
it actually costs the federal government money.
it costs the federal government millions and millions of dollars. And so it's a bad way to do it to begin with. But there is, but we're getting to the point where we neither have a budget that can pass, because remember, in the Senate, you have to have a super majority. You can't just pass it with a majority like in the House. And so you need to go have a negotiation with Democrats to get this passed. That's how normal times would operate. We also are seeing a lot of discontent. You saw it. I know you've had LaMonica McIver on your
Yeah.
program. And so, as you've probably talked about, we have Alina Habba here illegally as the U.S. attorney right now. She's using her office, my old office, to attack Democrats like LaMonica McIver, who was performing oversight. Now there's a trumped-up case against her. So then in Congress they tried to censure her, and that failed. So Republicans came over and said, no, this is getting ridiculous. So the fact that you're starting to see some of these cracks in the blind loyalty to Trump is going to make it problematic as they try to pass this budget when we already know all of the attacks that people are facing, all of the costs that are going up on tariffs. So that's going to be a big fight. And I also think that there's a there's sort of a disagreement that you might hear a little bit about in the Democratic Party. Because some people, I think, are sort of treating this like normal times. Like, we just wait till 28, we vote them out, and then we repeal what we need to repeal, and then we move forward. And I would say that's a wrong-headed look at what's going on in the world, because it's not just Trump. It's a reworking of the world order. It is the post-COVID, problems that we're still facing. It's AI. It's just an incredibly changing economy, and then an instability that Trump has added to this. And all of that is going to take a lot more than just a regular election 28. I was there on January 6th. I was on the floor of the House. He's not leaving. He's not leaving willingly. So it's going to take a lot more to make sure that we get back to our democratic norms, that we get an economy that works for people, and that we can move forward in a different way. And so this CR is where the rubber's going to meet the road, because I think a lot of us have been pushing to say, you cannot give away power ever. You can't ever give away power right now. Nothing. No quarter given. That is the only way forward if you are going to get anything done. And so this is the real test, because I think we saw the people who thought this was going to be normal times in this last type of fight help move this forward. And I think now we're drawing a line, and hopefully those same people are realizing, no, we're in different times. So that's the demand right now by myself and many of us, saying, no, if they need your vote, then you need to get something for it, because too many vulnerable people right now are at risk if you go along with anything the president's doing.
All right. The other question I've got to ask you, because I've asked this of every Democratic member of the House and Senate who I've had on. Do your Republican colleagues, do they know what they're doing? Like I've had different sort of perspectives on this. There are the folks who say, yeah, no, they're all, or not all, but many of them actually believe what they say and what Donald Trump is doing. Then some of your colleagues have said, no, they're actually just afraid. Like a lot of them do know what they're doing is wrong, that Donald Trump is an authoritarian, but that they're afraid either for their physical safety or for their electoral prospects. So I got to ask you, like, I found myself screaming at C-SPAN. Yes, C-SPAN. When I would listen to Republicans in New York and New Jersey and elsewhere, and like they're getting fucked in the salt tax debate, like they were getting screwed, and yet they were like bending over backwards to be like, well, we will never give him the votes, and then they give him the votes. Like do they know that what they are doing in sending troops into cities, into stripping abortion rights, into defying court orders, like, do they know that they are supported what they're supporting is wrong, or are the Republicans in the House who you serve with, are they just like don't care?
Yeah, they know it's wrong. I mean, you'd have to basically have a lobotomy to not know it's wrong, right? This is ridiculous. They know exactly how wrong it is. And don't forget, they're not just screwing themselves. They're screwing the 750,000 people that they're supposed to be serving and standing up for. So I hear all the time from, I have, I'm a military veteran. I served in the Navy. So I know a lot of veterans who know a lot of veterans across the aisle, and, oh, they feel awful. They know it's wrong. They hate him.
Right.
They disagree, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So quit. Nobody's, there's no gun to your head to run for office. If you're doing the wrong thing, then you're part of the problem. And then this idea that I think so many of them have convinced themselves of, oh, I have to be here because if it wasn't
Right.
me, somebody worse would be
Th-
here.
yes,
Well,
this is
then
what
you're
they say all the
doing
time.
every single thing that Donald Trump tells you to do. Why are you any better? You're not. Quit. It's time. Just, you know what? There are times when you're standing up and you're fighting from the inside, and there are times when you're becoming complicit. And I think that's why Don Bacon's leaving,
Hmm.
because he has tried at different times to stand up. I think he's
Congressman
just
from
realizing
Nebraska.
he's becoming complicit and it's time to go.
You mentioned LaMonica MacGyver. I've had her on, and I've written and covered extensively the travesty that's going on there. She's been indicted for doing her job as a member of Congress. People who want the background, they can go watch video I did with her. I also had on Congressman Menendez to talk about the situation, and everyone should know that you took time out of your campaign schedule. And there is nothing more precious than time in the closing months of a campaign. And you went back to support her because Republicans were targeting her, as you mentioned. And you deserve a lot of credit for that. You deserve an enormous amount of our gratitude and our thanks, because it would be an easy vote to miss. In some ways, it's kind of like theatrics that Republicans do, but you went back and you stood up for what is right. And so I want to give you an opportunity to address that, and also just the absolute travesty of what's going on there.
Well, I certainly don't deserve all the credit you're lauding on me. I appreciate it, but thank you. But no, it was just of course, the right thing to do. There was a procedural vote, and I was worried that procedural vote would go through, so I headed down to D.C. in the event that the procedure for putting the censure motion on the floor passed, so I could vote against it. Luckily, it failed. Luckily, some number of Republicans came out against it, which, like I said, speaks to some people realizing that the time to weigh in is now. And so what happened was there's an ICE detention facility against the laws of New Jersey at Delaney Hall here in New Jersey. So New Jersey has said no private detention facilities. I worked as a federal prosecutor, and will tell you, many of the private detention facilities are rife with mistreatment of prisoners, including the ones that GEO runs. They have a history of abuse. And then they gave millions of dollars to Donald Trump's campaign and were given authorization to open up a private detention facility in New Jersey. So LaMonica went to perform oversight duties along with Rob Menendez, Bonnie Watson Coleman, to make sure that at the minimum, people were being treated appropriately in that detention facility. Mayor Ras Baraka went with her.
Right.
The members of Congress were invited in. Mayor Ras Baraka was invited into the gate. And then he was asked to leave. And so he left. And on his way up, as soon as he got up, they arrested him.
Yep.
And Alina Habba, who was put into the U.S. Attorney's office in New Jersey for a limited period of time. You're allowed to put someone in temporarily. That time has ended, and she should not be in there right now. And there are numerous court cases pending right now about that. So she, from the start, has said she was going to use her office to turn New Jersey red. Completely inappropriate. But then decided to go after the mayor and to had him arrested. Inappropriate, got the call. Then, of course, all the tapes came out, and it was obviously very inappropriate, so she had to release him. So then she went after LaMonica MacGyver to make her case against her, who was a sitting member of Congress performing her oversight duties. Again, completely inappropriate. And then the Congress said they were going to censure her. So that's why I went down there. Luckily, it failed. Cooler heads prevailed. But still, speaking of people who are really standing in the breach right now, continuing to do their job despite an administration coming after them, Representative MacGyver is doing that, along with many, many others who are putting themselves at risk, just fighting for very basic things, rights and freedoms for people across this country.
All right. So I want to end where we began, which is with your election, because I agree with you. I'm not going to take sides between Virginia and New Jersey. So I'm going to say it's a tie as to which is the most important. What is the most important thing
Remember
going on in politics?
your all the wonderful days in Bergen County you spent.
Oh my God. And you and I could talk sometime about the amount of time I have spent in New Jersey. The first trial I ever had was in the Newark courthouse.
Oh,
I had a 6-week trial before Judge Lifland, who at the time was on the bench. But anyway, I'm not going to take sides in that. But I will say that the New Jersey election is the most important political story right now. along with Virginia. There's a lot of time and attention being spent on other things in politics, and they are important, and I cover them, including the release of the Epstein files, the attacks on democratic institutions, the capitulation of the media and universities and others. But ultimately, what's going to set the tone for 2026 is going to be what happens in November of 2025. And so, there is a huge difference between you winning by 3 points and you winning by 10 points. And so I think it's really important that everybody in the Democratic Party world and the audience here is paying attention and doing what they can do. So let me sort of ask you two questions. One is for people in New Jersey. How do they help? How do they vote? When is the election? What do you need? You need yard signs. Like, what can they do? And people outside the state of New Jersey, what should they be doing to help amplify your message and your cause?
Great. Thank you so much. Please, 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 to everyone in New Jersey and across the country, go to my website, mikiesherrill.com/volunteer. If you're here in New Jersey, if you want to come to New Jersey, we can set you up with canvassing, door knocking. You can phone bank from anywhere. You can text bank, get involved in some postcard writing. We have so many different options for how you can make a difference in this really critical, critical election. And we would welcome it. If you want a yard sign, reach out. Let us know. We're kind of carting them to all of our events so we can tell you when an event near you is. We have regional directors up and down the state. So I want to remind all my friends in Pennsylvania, everyone I knew in New Jersey was knocking doors last year. So come on, repay the favor. Get over here because we could use the help. And it's a critically, critically important election. And these results, as you said, are going to make a huge difference here in New Jersey as we're seeing Trump attacking everyone across the country, as we're seeing him really, threatening National Guard. We saw that great decision yesterday, I think it was, in California, saying how illegal some of this police force against the Posse Comitatus Act and having federal troops as a police force on the ground. So we're going to keep pushing back. It's important to have strong Democratic governors in that fight. So that's another reason New Jersey is so important. And then we can continue to make sure that we're keeping New Jersey blue, but also setting the table for the future of the Democratic Party.
Mikie Sherrill, you are a hero for democracy. We are rooting for you. And I look forward to when you are sworn in as governor for you coming back on and discussing the next phase of your successful career as the next governor. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Defending Democracy. Please make sure you're subscribed to Democracy Docket's newsletters to stay informed on the latest voting rights and democracy news. Also, we're trying to grow this audience to better serve you. So if you've not already, please hit the subscribe button and also ring the bell to get alerted whenever we post new videos to this channel.